Are you feeling a little lost or uninspired? Ready to add some serious sparkle to your life? Welcome to Coaching for Millennials, the podcast where we ditch the blah and say yes to your dreams. I'm your host, Jose Miguel Longo, a proud gay Hispanic husband, a dog dad, and a social justice warrior. For over a decade, I've been a career and life coach, helping folks like you uncover their passion and write their own career stories. Whether you're a Gen Xer, a Gen Y, or a Gen Z, this is your go-to guide for crafting a killer resume, finding your calling, and taking charge of your life. We'll dive deep and hold each other accountable and build a roadmap that leads you to a life that truly lights you up. So if you're ready to turn your fantasy into reality, tune in. It's time to unleash your passion because your purpose is waiting. This is Coaching for Millennials, and we're about to make some serious magic happen. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Coaching for Millennials. I'm so excited to be with you here today as it is a Tuesday, which is not the normal sequence in how our episodes are typically released. For a really long time, if you're new here, this podcast was always released on a Wednesday. And there was a period of time very, very early on where I had the space and time to release multiple episodes during the week. And that ship has kind of sailed as life has gotten busy, work has gotten busy, and just living has gotten busy. But I always have content in the back of my mind that I want to bring to you that I think is important and critical to personal development, professional development, learning, motivation, coaching, mindset, and all of the above, really. So I had been doing a little brainstorming, a little soul searching, and a little taking time to reflect as to how can I bring back what I once started that I wanted to do, meaning 2 episodes a week, and be intentional about it. Where one, it wasn't heavy for me to have the load of creating the episode and producing the content. And then 2, to release it and publish it. For those of you who are new to the podcasting space or aren't familiar how podcast works, when you're a solo podcaster and you don't have all the teams that produce the wonderful content that we see with other podcasts, it is a very time-consuming labor, and you have to be really, really passionate and love what you're doing. So I had started to create a framework to help me keep on target with the message that I'm delivering to you in each episode, while also creating a model that spoke to whoever it was that was coming to listen. So I came up with Tuesdays as episodes that will be specifically focused around mindset, coaching, emotional intelligence, positive psychology, motivation, things of that sort in that realm to stay in those themes. And then on Thursday, it will be more focused on career coaching content, focused to help you start to find your stride in your job search process or talk about challenging things in the job search process, with the hopes that as we continue to evolve in this season, we'll have experts and guests that'll come and feature certain topics around the job search process or things that are challenging in the workplace, which I have a couple of guests who have reached out that I've been prospecting and talking to that I'm looking forward to bringing on for this season. So having said all that, welcome to this episode. Welcome to this mini series, because right now, as we're jumping into February, there are so many different things going on. One, we just left January, which feels like was 100,000 years. 31 days in January sometimes is too much. And we respect the calendar, but we also have to respect that the world has been a little intense, a little crazy. And without reflecting too much on that, I know that some people in the space that we live in and the world we live in are trying to find a community, a space where they can feel safe to share their ideas, their values, their opinions. And I'm so here for that. That's what this podcast is all about. If you're someone who is feeling really heavy about the state of our country, the state of our world, I'm here to listen. be sure to, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're connected with. I don't use TikTok that often other than to post content, but I'm on YouTube, I'm in the Messenger app, wherever you can connect with me or send me an email. I read my inbox. I try to keep up with all my inbox, but I read my inbox every single day. So please feel free to reach out. Here is the theme for this week. I created a guide a couple of years ago that I have found to be really critical and helpful to people who are wanting to get unstuck and focused in their life. And so, what I'm doing here, I'm creating a mini series which I'm calling it just like the guide, Unstuck and Focused. So this mini series will have 3 episodes focused around it. This is the first one, and I'm titling it Why You Feel Stuck: How to Reengage Without Shame. And the reason I thought this was important is because as we leave the month of January, for anybody who created some goals and was really eager and excited to get started with the year to then realize that, oh shit, those goals never happen, or I haven't even started on what I'm going to do. This episode's for you. But it's also for anybody who is feeling stuck and perhaps not really sure where to start. Because let me tell you, I've been in those spaces where I'm looking for clarity and I know that I need to take action quick. And this is really what it comes down to. I sometimes need to take my own advice when it comes to all those things. So before I kick off with all those fun things for this episode, let's start with what I'm liking, what I'm watching, and what to look out for. So, what I'm liking. I went to the movies this past weekend with my husband and one of my girlfriends, and we saw The Housemaid. And it was such a well done movie. It was very unexpected in the twists and turns. I think that Amanda Seyfried and I forget what the other actress's name is now. Oh my gosh, and she's amazing. They just did such a great job. And it was so great to see the two of them together and confronting such a really powerful message when it comes to women who oftentimes are betrayed by their spouse or their husband in a marriage, and how that ends up being, and what you think you see on the outside is very different than what's happening on the inside. So if you're up to going to the movies, go ahead and watch that. It was a really good one. Don't bring the kids, maybe a date night. Would love to hear what your thoughts are and what you think of it. For something I'm not liking right now. So yesterday I literally opened up my Instagram probably around 7 o'clock to find a message that Kelly Clarkson is leaving the Kelly Clarkson show, which I am very respectful and I understand, but I was heartbroken. I don't remember the last time I cried like a little kid who lost its balloon. Because to me, Kelly Clarkson has been such a beacon of light in my life in so many different ways. Speaking of light, my ring light here makes me sometimes, depending on the light coming from this window, looks a certain way. Um, Kelly Clarkson has been such a beacon of light. Her music has inspired me. It's gotten me through some really difficult moments in my life since the early 2000s. And I actually started becoming a fan of hers, not in the very beginning. Like, yes, I liked her on American Idol. Yes, I was listening to it, but I became a hardcore fan into her second or third album, I think it was. Particularly the one that was called My Life Would Suck Without You. I think it came out in 2009. And as much as I loved all the other albums, that to me became where I became a hardcore fan. There was anything and everything that was Kelly Clarkson was going to be on my playlist, and I was going to be a huge supporter. And fast forward as I kind of like saw her career and her life changing, so was mine. And what her music was bringing and what she was living through really resonated with me. And yeah, she's obviously a celebrity and someone who is, been in music in this industry long enough where she keeps shit real. And that's what I've always loved about her. I was really fortunate last year to go see her show in New York City. And I actually was on the show for a brief moment. I did a quick stint where I did a segment around Um, I forget who it was, but one of the girls on her team asked me a question and we had like a little fun banter. So it was just a really memorable moment. And I've seen her twice already, which has been amazing. But I'm just so sad. I'm heartbroken. I understand the decision. I understand the choice, but I'm in my emotions about it. And I cried so much on this yesterday. It really broke my heart. But I respect, like, obviously it's not my decision. Why should I care? But it was really hard to kind of see that and see her the last 7 years evolve as a human, keep things real for people. So I'm definitely gonna miss her. What to look out for? Because I want to move so I don't get emotional. What to look out for? There's so many things happening in the background within coaching for millennials, from the guide that I mentioned before for the job search piece that I think is coming on really nicely, to a course that I've been working on for the last couple of months and kind of testing right now in the testing phase, and then to more podcast content and potential guests to bring on the show for season 6. So I'm really excited about all these things lumped into one. So let's move into why we're here today, which is really to talk about why you're feeling stuck. And I'm going to give you some actionable items throughout this conversation that are going to help you re-engage with yourself. And the thing that's most important to know about this is that you should not feel shameful to, give yourself a little grace. Don't be so hard on yourself, because the reality is that, like, we're human. And the thing of it is also is there's so much pressure in our society when it comes to a new year that everyone's almost expected or anticipating to have a goal that they're setting for the year. And I think that sometimes it's great to get motivated by that, but it's also sometimes a suggested failure because you're like, shit, well, if I don't keep this up, is this really going to be successful? And at the end of the day, that's not what you want to set yourself up for. You want to set yourself up for true success. And what I really think is important is that as you create goals for yourself, you want to be intentional with what they look like. You want to keep them small with bite size so that you can get to the long range of that. And you want to make sure that it's setting you up with actionable results or tangible results, maybe. So here's how I'm going to riff this off. So if you started this year with good intentions, meaning a goal or a vision for yourself, and now you feel a little bit disconnected, overwhelmed, or unsure on how to get back on track, I want you to hear this first. You're not lazy, you're not broken, and you did not fail, because that's the last thing you need, is to have all these emotions that are causing some negative space in your head and letting that saboteur jump in. More than often, you're just feeling overwhelmed and perhaps a little bit unsupported. So, for today, what we want to do is really introduce this 3-part series, which I'm calling Unstuck and Focused. And it's intentional and designed to gently reconnect you to your goals without shame, without pressure, or burnout. So, the first point I want to make here is that being stuck is simply just a signal. It's not about failure, it's about really being able to reframe what actually is important to you. Most of us were taught that being stuck means we're doing something wrong. And the reality is that it's not true. Or sometimes we're not trying hard enough. Or maybe perhaps the thing that we want, we don't want it badly enough. Or you're just not disciplined enough in doing that thing. And when I do coaching and I work with clients, to me, I always like to take the approach of looking at it as a signal. And signaling is really important. It's something that needs your attention. It's not your force. It's not something within you. It's the universe almost calling attention to, hey, I'm over here. If this is something you want, let's talk about it. It's sending you a gentle reminder, a gentle nudge. So the next time you feel stuck, pay attention to why you're feeling stuck and think about what is actually happening in those moments. What I also think is important too is that when you're stuck, or the notion of being stuck shows up, it's because one, you're probably unclear as to what it is you're trying to do or what you're trying to achieve. Two, you're emotionally overloaded. Hello, that happens to me all the time. I'm a Virgo. I'm emotional just showing up as a person. Or you're trying to push yourself forward without pausing to reflect. Eat that one up. Trying to push yourself forward without pausing to reflect. So here's what I think is super important. You can't move through what you haven't named, right? If you're not pausing to reflect on what exactly is being signaled or what exactly is happening, then you really can't take any action. So, the next point here that I want to point out is when we talk about being stuck or we talk about what comes from getting clarity and not having focus, is that there's something called the motivation that stands out to you. When we think about motivation, it's also about where's your cheerleaders? How are you going to stay motivated? How are you going to be able to say, in order for me to get unstuck with what I'm trying to focus on, who is there to support me in this journey? So, two things come to mind. First is that if you started this journey in January, January could be really loud. And so the motivation is right in front of your face. But as the month goes on, and sure shit, we know that January has felt like 1,000 days, like I said before, that motivation can fade really quickly. But the reality is that February is all about intention and honesty. So let's talk about what is really motivating you today in February. Today is February 3rd, and the month is just getting started. And it's the shortest month of the year, quite frankly, but there's so much action that can come from refocusing your energy. So motivation fades because it's emotional. And when we talk about emotional, it it tends to be something that fluctuates. This doesn't mean that because you were motivated in January and that emotion was really hit hard from the back and now you're starting to go over again, that you were not intentional about your goals or that you didn't really make any action. It just means that you were not feeling supported in the way that you needed. So let me take this from this approach. When you have external obstacles, such as time, money, or expectation, sometimes there are emotions connected to that that prevents you from not getting to the goals you want to really focus on. So, what happens when we have those external obstacles? The internal obstacles start to kick in. What are those internal obstacles? Well, that's fear, doubt, burnout, and emotional exhaustion. So, when we think of this, we don't want to slow down to understand what actually is blocking us, or otherwise we end up blaming ourselves instead. And that's where that saboteur comes into play, or it starts to create paralysis on us. So if you have a very clear intention, going back to the external obstacle, what is the goal that you're trying to achieve? Let's start to name the internal obstacles. And what I said, fear, doubt, burnout, emotional exhaustion, there's an episode where I talk about the saboteur. And I don't remember what episode it is, but I'll be sure to uh, pinpoint that or point it into the show notes here. That really will help you have a clear mindset of like when you're thinking of reframing your internal obstacles and how to name them. When you understand and know what saboteur is showing up for you, or what that, let's just call it internal obstacle, that emotion, it helps you then get a clearer picture as to what intention you're setting. So, again, remember that there's a connection to where you're motivated to, which is driven by emotion. And there's also a connection to what is the obstacle that you're facing in front of you. Now, to keep us in tune and keeping us aligned, I want to be able to offer you some pointers of how to take action here to get you re-engaged without completely overhauling your life. So, first, I don't want you to necessarily plan anything. You don't need a new planner. You don't need a new, redo of all your goals. You don't need to become a new version of yourself overnight. What I want to gently motivate you to do is take a small step to create momentum. With doing this, this creates reflection and creates direction. And it also consistently beats the intensity of potentially being burnt out later in the future. So, what does this mean? First, I want you to go download the guide that I created, which is called Unstuck and Focused. And this guide is going to be your go to, um, call it best friend for the next couple of weeks as we kind of go on this journey together. Now, what it's also going to do is that it's not going to push you hard, but it's going to help you slow down, get honest with yourself, and take intentional steps forward to get you to the next step, to get you to actually looking at your goal and understanding, is this goal reasonable, right? Is it achievable? Maybe perhaps I have to break the goal down into multiple ones, bite sized goals to take the action that's needed. So, the first action here you need to take is download the free guide. I'll link it in the show notes for you. And then I want you to only read the introduction and then the section that's talking about overcoming obstacles. So, the guide is about 25 pages. And don't be overwhelmed with that because in those pages, there's a couple of worksheets, and we'll talk more about that as we get through that section. The next thing I want you to do is write this down and bring your pen and paper for this conversation. I want you to answer this one question. It could be in your phone, it could be in your notes app, it can be in a journal, however you want to write this down. Um, where in my life or career do I feel most stuck right now? And what emotion comes up when I think about it? I'm going to repeat it for you again. When in my life or career do I feel most stuck right now? And what emotion comes up when I think about it? Now, this isn't fixing anything. This isn't necessarily needing you to plan anything. This is just creating a sense of awareness. This is getting your brain to start reflecting on the thing that ultimately is causing you to pause or perhaps give you that level of emotion or anxiety that's not letting you take action. Okay. So, next thing is how do we get ourselves prepared for success for the next episode? Now, ultimately, I want to make sure that you understand what we're going through here. This is a mini series that is going to be of 3 episodes. This is the first of 3. This one's first focused on understanding the obstacles and how do we overcome them. So, this is the first piece of that. The second one, which will be next week's episode next Tuesday, is how do we leverage our mindset and using emotional intelligence? And I'll talk about what emotional intelligence means in that episode. And the third one is focusing on emotional and focusing on the emotional intelligence, but also the mindset of how do we take action. So there's a little bit of reflection happening there that's going to give you the opportunity to jump into the work that you need to do. So what I've built and put together in this guide is really intentional to go through that step. A reason I'm creating this podcast episode as a mini series is because I know that during this time of year, so many people have big goals that they want to take action on, and then they struggle to keep them and they struggle to achieve them. I don't want to call them resolutions because I feel like resolutions fade. This is more about where are you in your life and what's most important to you and what intention do you want to set with achieving those particular goals. Now, as we prepare for next week, I already mentioned to you the 2 things to do. One is really download the guide. So I'll share that with you in the show notes. If you're someone who's listening to this right now, then you may want to say, I'm just going to go to the website, which is coachingformillennials.com, and you'll see that it says free guide. And then the second thing is answer the question I just read to you before, and being able to answer that question, but not think of it too much. Okay. It's just where in my life or career do I feel most stuck right now? And what emotion comes up when I think about it? Now, If you want to have a conversation about it, drop it in a DM or post it um, in a messenger app or however you feel like you want to connect with me. Happy to volley back and forth and share some feedback. So that's it for today. Ultimately, I want to make sure that I give you space and time to really engage with yourself gently, but also allowing you the space and time to know that you're taking the time to reflect, taking the time to think about yourself and being conscious and be intentional. So I'm looking forward to the next episode. If this episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who needs this right now in their life, send them our way. Tell them to subscribe, tell them to follow the channel, tell them to connect with us. And I look forward to coming to you on Thursday with a career coaching episode. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of your day with me here. And I can't wait to see you next week and Thursday. Take care now. Bye bye. Hey, amazing listener. If today's episode sparks some inspiration, don't keep it to yourself. Share the magic with your friends. And hey, if you're feeling the love, head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show and leave us our review. Your words fuel, fire, and help this community grow. Want to hear more about a specific topic? Have a burning question? Swing by coachingformillennials.com for the latest blogs, newsletter, and all things coaching. We're building a world where dreams become reality, one episode at a time. Thanks for being part of it. Can't wait to catch you into the next episode. Until then, all my love, light and shine.